and that it will include initiatives to raise the self-value, especially of schoolgirls. And will the findings of that task team be made public and call for public participation? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
My answer to that is that yes, the focus, yes, will be specifically targeted towards young women because they are part of the target group that is vulnerable and at great risk. And we will seek, and SANEC is also focusing on this, as is the Department of Health. So the results of the task team that you're referring to, there's no reason why they should not be discussed publicly. There's no reason why they should not be shared, because the fight against HIV/AIDS has to be a national effort. And all of us as leaders of our people sitting here must get involved in this fight, and we must spread the message. If anyone amongst us who can spread the message more effectively, it is all of us who are sitting here. So we can get on the task of spreading the message and addressing this pandemic. Thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, I would love to know what intervention is there for teenagers with regard to teenage pregnancy, because it is so prevalent, and also the older men who entice girls because they don't have money, and issues of teenage pregnancy, which is very high. Is there any intervention program that you have with regard to that?
Honorable Deputy President.
As I said earlier, Honorable Member, through you, Honorable Speaker, the various campaigns that have been embarked upon, the one that is recording good results is the Zazi campaign, and the other one which is really spreading in KZN is the one that involves men's sectors, particularly focusing on intergenerational sex, and focusing on young women to avoid precisely the issue of teenage pregnancy, because we face a challenge that older men, much older men, are prying on young women, promising them all manner of things, money and so forth, and that leads to teenage pregnancies. And that campaign that's in KZN is addressing precisely this issue. And we believe that as we spread this campaign, we should be able to curb this practice. And as we raise the level of awareness more and more amongst young people, particularly young girls, we should be able to make a dent in this scourge that is now going around. Thank you.
We now come to question number 2, which has been asked by the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Deputy President.
The Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Maimane, asked a question as, in a way, as a follow-up to the answer that was given by Minister in the Presidency to question 441 on the 22nd of July. And he now wants to know whether the Deputy President, as the leader of government business, is able to shed any light on this. And Honorable Maimane, as the Minister in the Presidency explained in his reply to this House, Cabinet recently, as you well know, approved the medium-term strategic framework. Now, that strategic framework is for the period 2014 to 2019, and it sets out the priorities for this term of government and President Zuma's administration. And according to the President, he has focused his work in this administration on achieving the objectives that are set out in the National Development Plan, which is now almost been translated into the MTSF. Now, according to this whole program, the President has begun a process of meeting all his ministers to set out targets. And I'm involved with the president in meeting the various ministers in his cabinet. And the program of meeting the ministers, as Minister Hadebe said, is meant to end in November, the end of November. There have been some delays because the president was incapacitated for some time, and we are now going to resume with maximum speed to try and meet the deadline that we have set up for ourselves. And let me put on record that the targets and the performance agreements that the president is going to arrive at are, in fact, what one would call a mechanism that the president himself, and remember, he appoints ministers, so it is his prerogative to decide who and who should not be a minister, and then he uses this as a mechanism for each member of cabinet to measure their performance. And in other words, these agreements are about the relationship between the president and his cabinet. However, these do not substitute the existing legal and constitutional instruments that have been designed to manage the performance and accountability of members of the executive and the accountability to this House. To this extent, Parliament holds the executive accountable in terms of the program of implementation, and the program of implementation really is set out in the strategic plans that every department has. And all of us are well aware of these strategic plans, the annual performance plans, and more importantly, the budgets that every department has to adhere to. And every minister has to stand before Parliament and articulate their own objectives against the backdrop of the budgets that they have. These should and are being used by Parliament, and they should be used by Parliament to hold the executive accountable. And this is an instrument that Parliament has to hold the executive accountable. In addition, because of our emphasis on increased and better intergovernmental coordination, Cabinet will have the opportunity to discuss these performance agreements with ministers annually. This arrangement takes into account the reality that no department can succeed on its own without tighter coordination and within what they do in the departments. So the opportunity, Honorable Maimane, is there for us as members of Parliament to hold the executive accountable, and these agreements are management tools, really, accountability tools that the President has to hold his executive accountable and make sure that they perform in terms of, one, the NDP, the strategic plan, as well as the agreements that have been set out. So our job as members of Parliament, yes, is to hold the executive accountable, and I would say let us get on and hold the executive accountable.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Deputy President, in the response that was put, it said that in fact that the President will be at his discretion make these performance agreements public. So I'm hoping they don't remain secret, but be that as it may, if the President must do the right thing and release these performance agreements to the public, what then should happen to ministers who fail to meet these performance standards? Because, and I can give you a number of examples, but the most topical at the moment is such as Honorable Minister Mutumbi, who has basically ignored the Public Protector's report, has not taken any remedial action. The Honorable Nkwinti, in the same MTSF, has implemented policies that diametrically oppose the National Development Plan. So, Deputy President, my question really If there are ministers that act and in fact put policies that oppose the plan, will you as leader of government business, as someone as parliament, would you recommend that the president in fact fire the ministers who are not performing? Thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Honorable Maimani, the concept of firing people can be so sensationalized that we can focus on it and not focus on the substance of what people do. Now, what the president does, when he appoints his ministers, and remember that it is the president's prerogative to appoint whomsoever he wishes as minister, and he chooses from amongst his own party members, and he chooses from other parties as well, which he has done. And he bases his judgment on the ability and the capability of those that he decides to appoint as ministers. And in the end, what we should do is to allow the president to use his own evaluation, assessment processes to assess his ministers. And this president has been able to assess his ministers. He has been able to evaluate them, and where necessary in the past, he has taken action. That he cannot be faulted on. And so let us give the president an opportunity to give his executive the right to work things out, and when the moment comes when any one of his executives falters, because nobody is perfect, the president, let us trust him, will take the right decision. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, thank you for that response. I think there's no gainsaying that the Honorable President of the country has a constitutional right to appoint members of the executive. But I think the challenge comes in when the views of this House, how do the views of this House with respect to departments, the findings of the Auditor General of departments, with respect to the views that members express on certain members of the executive, how do they get transmitted to the Honorable President? Because if we leave it to the Honorable President to hire and fire on terms and agreements that we are not aware of, there could be a bit of a dilemma. It is common knowledge, Honorable Speaker, that the Auditor General's findings on many departments have revealed that although they spend 100% of their budgets at the end of the year, in terms of performance agreement, they are not performing in terms of the performance indicators that they themselves set at the beginning of the year. So this either points to fiscal dumping by departments or just non-performance. And we would like to know what kind of sanctions and will the views of this House be taken into consideration when the President considers whether a head of department or a member of the executive should be redeployed? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Singh, you might recall that at his inauguration, the President was very clear on the issue of performance of members of his executive. He was very clear on the issue of accountability. And after he was inaugurated, he walked across the road and addressed a number of people, ordinary South Africans who had come to view the inauguration. And at that point, he actually did say that he is going to appoint an executive, and if the executive does not perform, he will take action. That's what the President said. And the President also stood here when he opened the fifth administration and said as much. He said he expects that his executive will be performing and they will serve the people of South Africa. The President is very strong and firm on the question of accountability. He wants his executive to be accountable, and in the end, not only to be accountable to the party that they belong to, but to be accountable to Parliament, but also ultimately, Madam Speaker, to be accountable to the people of South Africa. That is what the President seeks to see happening, and he is going to do precisely that. I have no doubt about it. Do the views of members of this Assembly matter? Do the views of ordinary South Africans matter? Yes, they do. And the President does take various views into account. And in the end, let us accept that it is not Parliament that appoints members of the executive. It is not Parliament. Our Constitution, let's listen to each other. Our Constitution is very clear on this. The President is given the right by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa to appoint his executive. So let us not be at war with the Constitution on this issue. Let us not be at war with the President on this issue. Let us give him the right and the space to execute his job as the Chief Executive Officer of South Africa. He has the right to do so. Thank you.
The Honorable Mabe.
I'm being provoked again. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, thank you very much for the response. I'm very pleased and quite happy about the fact that you have committed to the time frame of November, which was a worrying factor because the question when it originally came, it looked as if the President will never give any commitment. We thank you very much for that commitment of November. Since the signing of this performance these performance agreements will enhance service delivery and will make sure that our people receive quality services as promised by the African National Congress. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I thought this is a question time, not some praise singing drivel that is
Honorable
coming from the other side.
Shibambu, please take your seat. The Honorable Maimane.
Thank you so much. If this is in fact part of the challenge, is that we've seen the same ministers who have failed the people of South Africa come back in this house. That's the challenge behind the question. We've seen increasing unemployment levels. People simply can't find work. This is a challenge. Be that as it may, the Deputy President has assured that, in fact, has not committed to saying these performance agreements will be made publicly. So what I'd like to know is that another document that has been kept quite a key secret in this particular government is the revised Ministerial handbook, which gives permission to people to buy very luxurious vehicles at taxpayers' money. I'm interested to figure out when will the revised one come to this place so that ministers don't plunder the public account and can be held accountable to this House, Deputy President. Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Maimane, I don't want to sound flippant by saying that you will see the Ministerial handbook when it comes. I don't want to be flippant. But clearly, clearly, these things do take their time. Yes, it is being revised. But as part of that, this administration has embarked on a cost-cutting program on a number of fronts. And the President is quite serious about that. And indeed, that process is underway. Now, nothing is being hidden. And indeed, nothing should ever be hidden to this Parliament. Let us accept that a number of processes are underway, and the President is leading the executive, and a number of programs that are underway will be outlined before this very House. And I'm actually surprised that you should think that certain things are top secret and they are being hidden. We live in a country where there's transparency. So even the ministerial handbook is something that will be finally public once it is finalized. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 3 that has been asked by the Honorable Malema, the Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Julius Malema asked, how does he reconcile his testimony before the Farlam Commission of Inquiry, including his characterization of the unfolding events as a mine workers' strike having gone beyond a labor dispute and the resultant death of 34 striking mine workers at Marikana, with any of the government's interventions up to now to alleviate the suffering of the victims of the tragedy? Honorable Malema, there is no correlation between my testimony there before the Commission and what the government's interventions are. But I'm able to say the government has made a number of interventions. I can count, say, 4 interventions of a major proportion. The first one was to assist the families of all 44 people who died and to establish the facts about what happened at Marikana and to address the social and other hardships that they suffered, including economic hardships. Now, these are interventions that have been made. Following the tragedy, President Zuma established a commission of inquiry, which is being led by Judge Farlam, to investigate all these matters. Under the leadership, in addition to this, the President also set up an interministerial committee, which is chaired by Minister Jeff Radebe, under the leadership of former Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe. A framework agreement for a sustainable mining industry was entered into by labor, business, and government. And the agreement seeks to address a wide range of issues, and I'd like to touch on some of them. They have to deal with how to accelerate the process of transformation and beneficiation of the metals that are dug out of our soil. They deal with eliminating negative and social economic legacies and also empowering mine workers, accelerating efforts to upgrade human settlements in mining towns by all spheres of government, and accelerating implementation of processes to transform the migrant labor system. This process that I've just outlined, which was being led by former Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, is now being led by our President. He is going to steer this into what I will see in the end as a major solution. As stated above, an interministerial committee on the revitalization of distressed mining communities was established, and as I said, this is led by Minister Jeff Radebe. The implementation of the presidential package under the guidance of this IMC is underway, and it is going to focus on a number of areas: building housing and other services to revitalize mining towns as part of the October 2012 agreement between business, government, and labor. The focus will be on mining areas at Matlosana, Emalahleni, Sikukuni, Lepalale, West Rand, and Majabeng. In the Bujanala Platinum Complex, the Northwest Provincial Government has set aside 462 million rand for housing projects in the mining area of Marikana. Over the next 3 years, the Northwest will provide focused technical support on human settlements and a mix of housing opportunities in the mining areas of Bujanala district. The Rustenburg municipality provides basic services to 8 prioritized informal settlement and Madibeng municipality to 3 informal settlements. And during the period June to August 2014, the Department of Social Development and South African Social Security Agency provided support to informal settlements in the Rustenburg and Madibeng local municipalities. And to further promote improved living conditions for mine workers, the government is monitoring the compliance of mining companies with the mining charter targets relating to the living conditions of mine workers, as well as their working conditions. Government has urged companies to meet the 2014 deadline of these targets. And I have reason to believe that the various interventions, including the IMC, which involves a number of government departments, are going to, and they have already started. They've already started tremendous work to try and address the challenges that these distressed mining areas are facing. And now this is the government in action. This is the government at work addressing the challenges that our people are facing. And I believe that the government will succeed to address those challenges. Thank you.
The Honorable Malema.
Thanks very much, Honorable Speaker. The question here does not capture very well the spirit within which I submitted my question. I never wrote the tragedy. I wrote massacre. And therefore, these people who are changing our questions there, they must be very careful. I just want to check, Minister Shabangu said you misrepresented her under oath when you said she characterized the strike the same way you did, and it looks like either you or her, one of you lied under oath. But the last thing is that, why is the Deputy President not accepting that you are responsible for the death of 34 mine workers who died, that you killed them because you were driven by profit and the interest to defend your shares as an economic security guard in the economy of South Africa? And stop this thing that we must all take responsibility. We can't take responsibility for the things we don't know. You are the one who wrote emails and instigated the killing of 34 people. And I think you are responsible, and sitting there, your hands have got blood of innocent people who died in Marikana.
Honorable
and I think it is
Malema,
important
you
for
have
you
to withdraw that.
accept the responsibility.
Honorable Malema, withdraw the remark that the Deputy President's hands is full of blood.
The Deputy President's hands has got blood, a lot of blood of 34 innocent
Honorable
mine workers.
Malema, please withdraw that.
I'm not going to do that. The Deputy President killed the people in Marikana.
Honorable Malema,
and, he
if you
must
are
take-
not going to withdraw that, you have
Order.
therefore to leave the House.
Order, Honorable Speaker.
I am asking, you can't both of you be on your feet
On clarity,
unless Honorable Malema withdraws that
on
statement.
clarity,
He has
role-
to
which role-
leave
which
the
role is
House.
that- Which role is that?
Honorable
Speaker?
Malema, leave the House.
Before we deal with that, Speaker, can we be guided on the rules of Parliament in terms of which rule is
Honorable-
preventing us to say that Cyril is a murderer? He's a murderer of workers in Marikana. It's a fact. He said
Honorable-
committed action
Honorable,
in Marikana and he killed
Honorable
the workers.
Malema and
What
Honorable
prevents us from
Shibambu,
saying that
you
he's a
have
murderer?
to withdraw that.
Now I'm not going to withdraw.
If you are not going to withdraw, then you have to leave the House.
Honorable Speaker.
You have to leave the House.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Malema, please leave the House, and Honorable Shibambu, on the basis that you are not withdrawing those
On a point
remarks
of
which
order,
are
Chair.
unparliamentary,
On a point of order.
you have to leave the House.
On a point of order.
Honorable Speaker,
Who's calling
this side.
which side?
Honorable Speaker, on a point of order,
Yes,
the
Honorable
member Shivambo, Honorable Shivambo, when leaving the House, has made a middle finger sign to our respectable Deputy President. Could you please make a ruling on that?
The honorable member is no longer in the House, but it obviously is totally unacceptable and unparliamentary. But we have to deal with it in a different way because he's not in the House. Yeah. No, that's okay. I see you. Honorable members, we now go to the last question.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
With respect, the question was put. The Deputy President responded. There are 3 follow-ups that are entitled to. We have speakers who'd like to put follow-up questions and
Thank
hold the
you.
executive to account.
Thank you, Honorable Steenhuisen. Honorable Deputy President, there is the question you have answered, and the next supplementary question is that of Honorable Holomisa.
Same question. No. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy President, would you agree that it goes with logic that those deployed in the mining sector to advance BEE objectives must commit to fundamental change of the socio-economic circumstances of both workers and immediate communities for the better? Would you be able to confirm that this has indeed been the experience you and the rest of South Africans can claim, or that it has benefited only those deployed individuals so far? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you. In relation to this question on Honorable Holomisa, I think as a nation we should be guided by what we do largely at a national level. One of the wonderful things that was done by this government, ANC-led government, was to come up with a piece of legislation called the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Act, and which came up with a mining charter. And the mining charter should really be the guide that should show us the way in terms of what should happen with regard to transformation, yes, in the mining industry, and if you were to extrapolate it, you could use it for various other industries as well. It's a path-making, if you like, piece of legislation. It deals with how workers should be accommodated, their living conditions, how the equity should be dealt with, and their working conditions, their safety, and a whole number of other things, including how communities that live around mining operations should also benefit from mining. Now, it is true to say that the mining charter has not, as it has been addressed here in this very parliament, has not really been fully implemented. And indeed, a number of companies have not lived up to the provisions of the mining charter. And those who have participated in BEE transactions have, in a number of ways, either sought to try and push the agenda of transformation. And in large measure, we often find that because they are minority players in the corporations where they are participating in, it does take a long time to effect the change that we would all like to see. But the good thing is that the mining charter is there, and the government has decided that it is going to monitor compliance of the implementation of the mining charter. Now, I take a lot of courage from that we have a government that is committed to foster transformation in this industry and indeed many other industries. Now, we need to be focusing more and more on pushing companies to adhere to the provisions of the mining charter. And I think in this new administration, we will be able to make progress. And with the new minister that we've got in the mining industry, we will be able to make greater progress as led by our president as well. Thank you.
The Honorable Esther Reiser from the IFP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, Marikana has forever changed the way that and the relationship how people will see the democratically elected government. In 1994, we all, or most of us, voted for Nelson Mandela, and he did not disappoint us. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that.
Order, honorable members. Allow the honorable member to make his statement and question.
Now, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy President, I must ask, have the leaders of the ruling party not betrayed those noble objectives? Will Marikana not always be an example or a monument of collecting vast personal wealth at any cost? My question, will you restore, and I'm not talking about the 425 million rand that you mentioned and the houses being built there. I'm talking more of a psychological issue. How will you restore, and not only to the deceased families, but to that whole community, the scars left by an incompetent police force, which motto should be serve and protect and not kill and destroy? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Marikana was clearly a very sad moment in the history of our country. It is an event and a tragedy that we would all, as South Africans, never want to see again. And indeed, as the President set up the commission, that is what he had in mind, that we should examine exactly what happened with a view of making sure that a Marikana does not happen again. And this he has done so that we can look at the totality of what happened at Marikana, and we can move forward together as a nation. The first thing, obviously, we have to do is to heal the wounds, heal the wounds that were caused by the tragedy of Marikana, and to move on in a way where we will, in a practical way, heal those wounds and look after those who are victims in a number of ways, and the government has already started doing that. The setting up of all the interventions that the government has decided on, in many ways is testimony to the fact that we want to address some of the causes and that gave rise to this tragedy, and to make sure that we address the real problems that many communities around mining areas face in our country, and also find a way of addressing the migrant labor system, because the migrant labor system is really the rock bed of what gave rise to what happened at Marikana. And the good thing is that the President is going to lead this effort of even addressing the issue or the problem of the migrant labor system. So the answers will be found. Some of them may be difficult, but we've got to confront them as a country, as a nation, together, working together so that we can heal the wounds of Marikana and move forward. Thank you.
The Honorable Maimane.
Deputy President, I hold with me here the very respective email that you sent. It in fact says here that the terrible events that have unfolded cannot be described as a labor dispute. They are plainly decidedly criminal and must be characterized as such. In line with this characterization, there needs to be concomitant action to address this situation. In fact, further on it says we are essentially dealing with a criminal act. Deputy President, your email with the Deputy President, would the Deputy President concede today that this email confirms that he personally inflamed the situation, and that if the Farlam Commission finds any wrongdoing or any contributory role that was played by you at Marikana, will you resign as Deputy President?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Maimanu, I had wanted earlier to actually say that I think it will be incorrect to begin here to address substantive issues that are being dealt with by that commission. And this precisely touches on that. I sat in that commission for 2 days, 2 solid days, and I volunteered to go. I was not subpoenaed. I volunteered to go because I wanted to go and tell the truth. And the truth is what I told at that commission. And I think as a National Assembly, we should be respectful of processes that are underway in other structures or institutions that have been instituted by our government. There is a commission that is currently dealing with this very issue. If I were to answer you again, it would be almost tantamount to contempt for that commission, and you should know that as the leader of the opposition. You should know that. So I would say, let us allow that commission to do its work. Let us allow that commission to do its work, and let it finish its work, and having finished its work, then as South Africans we can have even broader discussions, which is precisely what the President has asked to do. Now, that question does not arise because the Commission is still doing its work, and thank you very much.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
What's the point
Madam
of
Speaker,
order?
the point of order is that the Honourable Maimani put a direct question to the Deputy President that said, if the Farlam Commission finds him guilty of wrongdoing, will he resign? The Deputy President has not answered the question. Please, can we not protect the executive in this House?
Honorable Steenhuisen, please let us not undermine our own democracy. Let us not urge this House to be involved in something which is clearly wrong, because we do have a commission that was appointed by the President, and it is doing precisely the issues that has been raised, to attend to them, to get to a point where all of us as a country get to know what it is we need to do to take the issues forward. So I am not allowing that we should take this issue beyond what the Deputy President has answered.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Speaker, on a point of order. Speaker, point of order.
Yes, where's the point of order?
The question was disposed of, and the Deputy President said the question does not arise because the Commission is seized still with the matter. It has been answered directly.
Honorable Steenhuisen, I'm going to ask you to take your seat and allow us to proceed
May I address you, Madam
to
Speaker?
the last issue. No, you are
May I
just
address you,
delaying.
Madam Speaker? I'm not
Honorable
delaying. Madam
Steenhuisen,
Speaker, I'm not delaying at all. I'm saying to you, you are now calling into question whether in fact we can discuss matters before the Farlam Commission. I then ask you, Madam Speaker, why this question was allowed onto the order paper in the first place. It refers to this Farlam Commission. Please, can you get control of your House?
the point I'm making to you, Honorable Steenhuisen, is that you cannot push the Deputy President further than what he has said to the House. Why not? Because I, as the Speaker and presiding officer here, am not prepared, no matter how much
Honorable
you scream.
Speaker.
No matter how much you scream, no matter how much you scream, I'm not going to do what you push me to do simply because you are screaming at me.
Speaker.
The Honorable Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Chief Whip.
The Honorable Maimane's question is not following from the original question. This is a new one. Besides,
Order, honorable members. Allow the chief whip. Yes, honorable member.
it does not arise from the original question. Besides, Comrade President cannot anticipate the outcome of the commission. The commission does its work independent of this parliament, and its findings will be made public. We all will respond to it at that point. And therefore, Honorable President, Deputy President, ignore Honorable Maiman.
Honorable members,
Speaker.
I'd like us to move to question number 4.
Speaker, if I may be recognized.
Yes, Honorable Waters.
Speaker, you say you won't push the Deputy President for an answer to a simple question. One can only conclude that Latuli House is called and you are bidding them what they've told you to do. Thank you.
You have a right to keep enjoying the joke.
Honourable Speaker, just point of order. Honourable Speaker, over here.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Minister.
The Democratic Alliance seems to have got amnesia. They know that ministers have to respond to questions, but they can't be held to answer them. That has been the practice in the House for 20 years. I don't know why in this Parliament they suddenly decide that they can cross-examine ministers and members of the executive and that they have to answer the questions directly. They must look back at what happened in the past 4 parliaments and not try and reinvent things.
Honorable members, I urge you that we move on to question number 4 asked by J.L. Mahlangu and ask the Honorable Deputy President to answer.
No, I do want to answer. Madam Speaker, I do want to answer. Honorable Mahlangu asks, in view of the National Development Plan vision for 2030, which requires all South Africans to work together towards nation building and social cohesion, and the need for a balance to be found between healing the divisions of the past, broadening economic opportunities for Black people in particular, and building a sense of inclusion and common purpose amongst all South Africans. What programs have been initiated by government in order to achieve this goal? And what steps will government take to ensure in the process of building a cohesive society, diverse identities that manifest themselves through cultural practices and languages do not disappear?
Speaker, on a point of order.
What's the point of order?
It's not the practice in this House to read the entire first question off the order paper. The President...
I was done. I was done.
The point is, Speaker, that if every minister reads every question on that order paper today, you're going to waste hours of question time just listening to the order paper.
I note your concern, Honourable Member. Please proceed, Deputy President.
Honourable Member, I was done. So there are a number of ways in which government contributes to the promotion of social cohesion. Government invests significantly towards providing universal access to quality health care, education, training, clean water, and adequate sanitation, as well as in reversing the apartheid geography of the past and strengthening the social wage. Taking the education example, 86% of our schools have been declared no-fee schools, and over 9 million learners are fed on a daily basis through the National School Nutrition Program. Secondly, the economy must grow at least 11 million jobs that need to be created, should be created by 2030. Initiatives here include supporting local suppliers for the infrastructure program, and various economic zones need to be set up and proclaimed. Mass economic and cultural redress needs to be effected. This should include land restitution and redistribution, employment equity, as well as black economic empowerment. All these need to be done to foster national cohesion. Thirdly, the sharing of common space across race and class must be enabled through instituting sustained community dialogues, improving public spaces and services, and elevating sports both at community and at schools level. Fourthly, constitutional values must be fostered so as to help to forge a new South African identity. Initiatives that were identified in the MTSF include establishing constitutional Monday and inculcating the Bill of Responsibilities in learners and reciting the preamble of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa at school assembly. Lastly, all of society must come together to craft and implement a social compact that should help propel South Africa onto a higher developmental trajectory, as well as to build a more cohesive and equitable society. This compact that should be built or put together should outline how each social partner should seek to ensure that the NDP and the vision that is set out therein is realized. In addition, the National Planning Commission and its Secretariat are talking to business and civil society about uniting all South Africans behind the NDP. Parliament plays an integral part of this whole process, and it is called upon to join this national effort by ensuring that national unity and economic inclusion remain the strategic goal in its engagement with not only the executive, but with various stakeholders, and indeed our people as a whole. This has to be seen as a national task that all of us have. It is not only a task of the executive or only a task of the ruling party. It should be embraced by all of us as various parties in this House as a common task and as a common vision that we should see realized. Realized as Nelson Mandela led our nation, we should try and walk in his footsteps and emulate the example that he put forward in terms of building a nation. Let us continue to build the nation that Nelson Mandela put together. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mahlangu.
Honorable Speaker, thank you, and thank you to the Deputy President for quite an elaborate answer to our question. The follow-up question that I would like to raise with the Deputy President is what more can and needs to be done to give effect to these ideas of building this desired nationhood of South Africa, and work that needs to be done to achieve the desired sense of destiny on the subject of social cohesion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Deputy President.
I think there are many initiatives that can be embarked upon, and the government has already led in this regard. Last year, the government held a national cohesion summit in Kliptown, and that was well responded to. A number of provinces have already followed up by holding their own provincial summits on national cohesion. I had the privilege of addressing the Gauteng one a few weeks ago. It was attended by a number of people from various walks of life, and some of the issues that were dealt with were we should, as South Africans, learn each other's histories. We should appreciate each other's cultures. We should try everything we can to learn each other's languages, because we speak different languages, but many of us still do not know each other's languages. And part of the whole process of building a nation and making ourselves socially cohesive is to do precisely that, and to appreciate who we are as a people as we promote each other's cultures. And indeed, in the end, it is how our people live that will really testify to the fact that whether we are becoming socially cohesive or not. If our people are economically empowered, if our people are socially empowered and empowered in a variety of ways where we assist each other to move on, then we could say that we have reached a stage where we're becoming more and more socially cohesive. This, as I said earlier, is a national task, and every one of us has a responsibility to take on this task and make sure that we fulfill the dream of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic South Africa. It is a task that we must all fulfill. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, many of times we've seen some emergence and resurgence of racial undertones and currents in some tertiary institutions, whereby students and workers are coerced to engage in some dehumanizing activities. What that do not have an effect on nation building and social cohesion. What are the plans that the government has with regard to ensuring that there is sort of understanding and tolerance with regard to nation building students at the universities and workers being respected, which is all part of fundamental rights enshrined within our Constitution?
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Member. One of the things that the National Development Plan process, particularly in its diagnostic report, noted was that we still remain a divided nation in a number of areas. It noted that we still have a number of fault lines, and some of the fault lines have to do with the origins where people come from in terms of region, in terms of race, in terms of language, in terms of gender, in terms of age, and a whole number of other areas. Now, these are the fault lines that still exist, and we often see themselves being played out in a number of institutions, be it in the workplace, be it at institutions of learning, as you have alluded to. And our task, as I've indicated, is that we need to take these problems head on. We need to address them. Our task should be to close those fault lines and continue with the effort of building a nation. And at the government level, there are many programs, many interventions, and many measures that we need to take. And some of those I've addressed in terms of making sure that we empower our young people. And those young people in some of those institutions of learning do need to be empowered, do need to be exposed to very progressive principles that are clearly set out in our Constitution. Our Constitution is a wonderful document that sets out the principles and the values that we all as South Africans need to embrace and to live by. And that message needs to be spread more and more. There are quite a number of tangible and intangible things that we can do, practical things that we can do, and some of those have to do with, yes, as I said, learning each other's language and mixing more and more easily together and trying to bridge the divisions of the past and making sure that people do get to live wherever they want to live, and redesigning the spatial architecture of our country so that many of our people who've always been relegated to places that are far away from where they work should live nearer and nearer the cities, which will enable people to mix a lot easier, a lot more and more often. One of those things, of course, which we also have to address is the issue of xenophobia. Xenophobia is an issue that we also need to address as South Africans. And our constitution guides us very well when it comes to all this. So we have a plethora of answers and strategies that we can employ to address these fault lines that I was talking about. And what we have to do as leaders is to embark on them and implement the right things that will help us build a nation. Thank you very much.
Honorable George.
Thank you, Speaker. Delivery in the local government sphere is vital to bridge the spatial divide between local communities that impedes the process of building a cohesive society. Yet we continue to see municipalities like Madibeng at the point of complete collapse. Corruption and cadre deployment have brought municipalities across the country to their knees at the expense of service delivery to many poor communities. Will the Deputy President commit to the removal of cadre deployment in the employment of municipal managers and staff? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
The issue of deployment of people in various positions is clearly a matter that has to be addressed by those people who are closest to the action. And at the municipality level, it is the people who are in the council who finally appoint and identify people who should either become municipal managers. They vote for the speaker of the council, they vote for the mayor, and all that is done at that local level. Now, I'm sure you'll be the first to say to me and confirm that in a democratic system and process, those who are closest to the issues that evolve at that local level are best placed themselves to identify who should occupy various positions. And of course, we do want people who have capability, who have all the wherewithal to be able to do the work that will advance the interests of our people. And I don't think sitting here in Parliament, you and I will ever be able to dictate what should be happening at Madibeng. Let us leave it to the people in Madibeng to determine what should happen there. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Carter.
Honourable Speaker, thank you. Has the Deputy President taken note of statistician General Pale Legoshla's report that the 20-year review of skills and unemployment showed that only about 18% of black youth are currently in skilled employment, mainly because many teachers will still not teach, many unions will still not put the future of youth before political factionalism, and many departmental officials were still not being held accountable. How is government going to address these problems in keeping with the vision of a 2030 NDP? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
I think if you listened very carefully to the Statistician General, you will also have heard him say that these are challenges that emanate from our past. They emanate from our apartheid past. The apartheid past that we've been through has given rise to some of these serious problems. The Bantu education that the teachers were exposed to it debilitates them in as far as delivering effective education to young people. And he has said himself, if you are able to listen, he has said himself that these are things that we need to address with the greatest of urgency. And that's precisely what this government is going to be doing. I know for a fact that the Department of Basic Education and the Department of Higher Education is seized with this report. They are going to look at it very closely with a view of seeing what measures and strategies they should come up with, because it does paint a very sad story. Much as progress has been made in the last 20 years, we need to be making much more progress on the education side, and they are going to be examining that report very closely to make sure that we do not see this type of report in another 5 years again. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. We now move on to questions to ministers in the economics cluster. we have question number 141, which has been asked by the Honorable Maluleke to the Minister of Environmental Affairs. The Honorable, the Minister.
Ke a leboga, Musa Khotla. The response to question 141 is as follows. The Department of Environmental Affairs commissioned a study in the year 2007, which was aimed at identifying and determining the number of waste disposal facilities that are not licensed throughout the country, and consequently, 341 unlicensed waste disposal sites were identified. At least 139 out of that 341 unlicensed waste disposal sites were licensed between 2012 and 2014, and all remaining 202 unlicensed waste disposal sites are being licensed in this current financial year. The department is working closely with all our provinces, which are responsible authorities for issuing the environmental authorizations and waste licenses in order for these landfill sites to be regularized. The department's approach to waste management is guided by the National Waste Management Act and the National Waste Management Strategy, which seek to ensure sound, integrated, and sustainable waste management practice and implementation in South Africa. And the Waste Act is based on the principles of waste hierarchy, which promotes the internationally accepted best principle, which we call the 4 Rs: reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. The waste, so that no waste actually ends up at the landfill site. The Waste Act also provides for the approval of waste, the industry waste management plans, as a tool to promote a sustainable recycling economy by ensuring the creation of jobs, infrastructure, management systems, and technology, as well as market sector in the waste sector. We can say with confidence that South Africa's legal framework for waste management is the most progressive in the continent. And the National Waste Management Strategy, which was promulgated in the year 2009, has identified 8 goals, and goal number 3 of those talks to issues of green economy and sets out ambitious targets for job creation and enterprise development. The new amendments of the Waste Act now propose the radical socio-economic shift by accelerating the transition towards achievement of the goals of the strategy, as well as establishing the basis for transformation of the waste sector through a viable recycling economy. And the recycling economy addresses the market failure where waste has been pervasively undervalued and where the polluter pays principle was not fully embedded in the mainstream economy. And the recycling economy seeks to apportion the right value to waste and facilitate more demand for recyclable goods and services, thereby producing more jobs and entrepreneurs from these waste. The recycling economy has been valued as much as 50 billion rand and in its contribution to the GDP of South Africa. We must therefore, at this point in time, continue to see the energy, the waste as a renewable source and not as something that must be thrown away, which is very, very much futile indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Maluleke, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the answer. The top priority areas for the department over medium term includes providing support to local government in waste management. What are the measures have been set in place to ensure that the potential of waste sector is unlocked to ensure women and youth are brought into economic productivity? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much indeed for the question. We have a special unit in the Department of Environmental Affairs whose task is to support the local municipalities in air quality as well as in this area of work that we do. And in that regard, this is the reason why we have opted to be out there in the communities at municipal levels to help our municipalities to ensure that our waste disposal side are actually regularized, because most of them were not actually regularized, as I said. In the process, the appointment is made. We have what we call the Youth in Waste, a program which employs over 3,000 young people just in 4 provinces at this point in time. It's a training program to young people where we actually are attempting to make them and creating them into or turning them into artisans. No longer bomalaisha, but youth artisans in waste. Because to manage waste is a science. It's not just picking and throwing away. In the process, also, there are young women who are employed. The Free State province is the one that has actually started benefiting from this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Easthuizen.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Minister, unlicensed landfills are mostly created by illegal dumping, which is costing this country nearly 200 million rand per annum. Will you and your department not consider implementing stricter laws and regulations in order to assist local government in clamping down on this practice of illegal dumping? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question once again. We are, maybe I should start by indicating that the management of landfill site is a responsibility of municipalities which we are supporting them on. The licensing is done by the provinces, especially on EIAs, but authorizations on the management is done by the municipalities. What we are doing is actually to help those. Yes, we are aware that there are lots of illegal dump sites, but we first started with regularizing those that are operating and supposed to be operating under the law. This is part of a process. We'll obviously not, at this point in time, regularize any illegal dump site or any dump site that's not been declared. So the question here is to ensure that our people who are in the communities are made aware of the fact that there is a need to deal with waste in a manner that you don't dump anywhere else, but you would really ensure that you put back that, you use your dustbins. As I said, the 4 Rs are very useful. In fact, in a long term, we are working towards ensuring that there is less waste that arrives at the waste disposal site. So even that illegal dumping over long term will not happen because people shall be now recycling waste and actually retrieving money and becoming entrepreneurs and getting jobs from that recycling. That's in a long term. For now, we are not using regulations to clamp them down, but perhaps municipalities can actually do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Steenkamp.
Thank you. Minister, a recent study found that 72% of landfill sites do not comply with regulations. Furthermore, only 26 of 92 landfill sites complied with the minimum requirements of the management of landfill sites. In light of this, what actions are you, Minister, taking to ensure that more landfill sites comply with the required minimum requirements, regulations for the management of landfill sites?
Honourable Minister.
Perhaps I should repeat. The very first answer I gave was that in 2007 we conducted a study that was intended to identify the number of waste disposal facilities that are not licensed throughout the country. We found, we don't have to do that every year. We found 341 and helped the municipalities, including throughout the country, to get regularization. That regularization I'm talking about is licensing. 139 out of 341 have been licensed in 2 years' time. I've said 202 remaining are being licensed. The earlier question was talking about the illegal dump sites. Now, illegal dump site is not a landfill site that must be regularized. Those are the ones that we're saying municipalities must find a way, and will find a way of dealing with those. But in our system, we want to ensure that no waste reach a landfill site. The 4 Rs must apply. Money must come out of that, And we've actually come to this parliament to amend the law to put price on waste so that our people can begin utilizing waste in a manner that they actually see money and ability to actually create entrepreneurs and not waste that must be discarded at the waste disposal site. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, my question was in line with that. What penalties, incentives or legal action does the department have to enforce compliance? Are they effective or sufficient to the task, and what are the challenges there? Does it need changes in the regulatory framework? Would this be necessary? And I apologize if I missed it in your previous answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Earlier on, I did say that at this point in time, we are doing education to the nation. We are licensing the landfill site to regularize them. In other words, we are making the entire system to be compliant first, so that when we have a system, municipalities then controlling areas where illegal dump site is happening, then only then we can say, yes, indeed, we should move towards perhaps further regulations. But for now, the regularization is what we are doing, and indeed, that is linked to job creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we've done for supplementary questions. We'll now move to the next question, asked to the Minister of Finance by Honorable George. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes, modeling work has been done to determine the impact of the current slowdown on the rate of unemployment. And to further respond to the question, a couple of details on the issues identified. The first relates to the fact that there is definitely a correlation, a positive correlation between economic growth and growth in employment. Prior to 2008, for every 1% of economic growth, employment grew on average by 0.8%. And if you compare that with that elasticity with other economies, particularly in emerging markets, this is pretty much higher, and it's even more higher than in advanced economies. The second point related to the same issue is the fact that if you look at the period between 2012 and 2014, the economy has created 764,000 jobs in that period. You'd also note that that period coincides with the redoubling of government spending within that period. And the third point probably to make is that it's very clear that the slow economic growth means that the growth of private sector employment is slower. And therefore, moving forward, it's very clear that the focus that we have to make is on how do we grow private sector employment. On the question around the steps identified in the MTSF, government outlines a number of critical interventions to stimulate growth of employment and growth of the economy. And there are a range of interventions that are proposed within the MTSF. And these range between those interventions that seek to deal with the binding constraints within the economy, and these will relate to how do we improve energy security, ensuring that we confront the challenge of electricity constraint. Some relates to a conversation around how do we improve the regulatory environment. Some of those relate to around a massive program to grow infrastructure development. There's also a very big chunk of the activities in the MTSF that relate to growing the productive sector of the economy. And in particular, the first part of it obviously deals with how do we grow industrial activity and through the Industrial Policy Action Plan, and how do we accelerate the implementation of it, as well as the Agriculture Action Plan. Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable George, any follow-up?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Deputy Minister, for your response. Our economy stagnated at 0% growth in the first half of this year, and consensus on expected growth for the year is around 1.5%. At this rate, unemployment will rise above the 7 million people currently unemployed, and the fiscal deficit will widen. Deputy Minister, how will you finance the widening deficit without an increasing tax base? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. A couple of points in response to that. I think the first is that you would note that there is a commission that is currently looking at the tax regime in the country. And I would suggest that most of the issues relating to tax should actually wait for the announcement of the Davis Tax Commission, which probably is happening in the month or two from now. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. My question to the Deputy Minister is whether the Minister has taken steps to deal with above inflation wage settlements, which, if not accompanied by productivity increases, could result in the inflation rate moving further away from the upper band of the inflation target, and in the end have a negative impact on economic growth and employment. Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. We have, I think, the Minister, when he addressed Parliament at some point here, one of the points that he made is that the public sector wage negotiations are a critical area that we must guard and watch very sensitively. We're very conscious that the issue of the cost of employee or the public wage bill is going to be a critical factor if we are to manage our fiscal balance and ensure that we have tighter fiscal management. Negotiations have not started, and until the negotiations started, it is very clear that we'll have to do a couple of steps. Part of it, of course, is that there are a number of initiatives within government to improve the performance of the public sector, ranging from the skills development interventions, but also looking at how do you weed out corrupt element within the public sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. To the Deputy Minister, I think it's a fact that economic growth needs to have a direct and positive effect on lowering unemployment. Can the Deputy Minister indicate how unemployment is being lowered through long-term methods and not through the EPWP works programs, which are known to be short-term and not actually addressing unemployment? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. If the member would take interest in looking at some of the core programs of government, from the extent to which we are driving infrastructure development, skills development program, as well as the industrial policy and industrial plans that we are implementing, our agriculture initiatives, all of those show a greater focus in growing the portion of productive economy in the overall GDP. I would urge that the honorable member go and look at our medium-term expenditure framework. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minister. Minister, you've indicated very positively that between 2011 and 2014, 760,000 jobs were created. Although, Minister, in the second quarter, unemployment rose to 36% in the broader definition. Joblessness was at its worst since 2008, and the number of unemployed people rose to 7 million, as previous speakers has indicated. And discouraged workers increased by 64,000 people. The biggest job losses, Minister, were seen in the manufacturing and agricultural sector. Now, Minister, the simple equation is that investment equals jobs. Minister, the government currently is failing to grow our economy, failing to create jobs, and failing to attract investments. Minister, I would like to know what steps will you take to ensure that the economy stabilizes, that indeed investment grows, and that jobs are created? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Can I, again, the first point probably to realize is that one of the major issues we identified is actually trying to create a broader consensus within the country around how and where we drive our economy. In this regard, there is an initiative driven by the presidency, the Presidential Business and Labor Working Group. Part of the work that they are doing is to look at individual constraints that are actually binding the economy and preventing the economy from growing. A number of those areas have already identified, and these are not short-term measures, and these are long-term measures. And out of those initiatives, consensus is emerging around what kinds of intervention needs to be made. In addition to that, I would seriously urge members, look at what we have in our MTSF document, because we outline concretely the interventions in growing our industrial, in driving industrial development as a factor. We're talking about how to drive agriculture development and a whole range of other interventions to promote private investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next question is to the Minister of Environmental Affairs, asked by Honorable Mabilo.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The question is 142. We have a response as follows. The department implements projects under the auspices of Expanded Public Works Program, and most of the work opportunities created are short-term in their nature because they are linked to the lifespan of projects. And the following are implemented by the department, and the actual number of work opportunities created under each program for the specific target groups are also stated, and I'll go through this. But however, I need to indicate that there are some of the programs here that are actually long-term in nature. So we have both long-term and short-term. In particular, the long-term ones are around working on fire, for instance. Some of the programs that are working in waste, those two programs in particular. But there is a program called the Greening and Open Space Management, which employs in this year 2,281 people in general, in total, and 1,350 of those are women, and youth are 1,440. And another one program is the People and Parks, which employs 650 people, 322 are women, and youth, 417. 24 are people with disabilities. On the previous one, I must say, mentioned that 70 of those are people with disabilities. A program called Wildlife Economy employs 1,186, 521 of those are women, and 1,013 are youth, and 3 people with disabilities. Working for Land is 270, 166 are women, and 122 are youth, and 17 are people with disabilities. Working for Coast as well, 3,804, 382 women, and 2,401 youth, and 165 are disabled. Working for Water is 10,050, 5,400 of those and 1 are women, and youth 6,579, and 79 are people with disabilities. Working for Wetlands is 279 and 154, women 159, youth and 4 disabled. Working on Fire, 5,496, 1,621 are women, and 5,201 are youth, and 126 disabled. Working on Waste, 5,596, 3,418 of those are women, and 4,486 are youth, and 114 being disabled.
Thank you,
And then-
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much.
Time has expired. Thank you. Honourable Mabilo, any follow-up?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the comprehensive, detailed response. However, I would like to make a follow-up question. Noting the department's involvement in the expanded public works program in relation to generating green jobs and the natural resources management programs, having significantly increased the department's capacity and responsibility to create employment, the question is, how have skills been developed through these programs in order to facilitate green and inclusive economic growth? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The green jobs are a way to go for us. And indeed, the skills development programs is a greater embodiment of all our expanded public works program. Because we do train people, and this is the reason why we say that these are job opportunities, because people who leave these jobs would then be adequately and sufficiently trained to be able to move into other opportunities that may arise. And in this area, we have, I mentioned earlier on, just as an example, the youth in waste. That's in a green program, because the objective of that program is to green our operations and ensure that waste disposal management becomes a green issue. And therefore, the people that we are training, I did say that we are calling them artisans, waste artisans. Asibo malaisha, bamatakala, ke the artisans, because they have been trained scientifically how to deal with weighing, waste separation, what kind of waste is degradable, biodegradable, and so on, so that they are able to manage a landfill site like they actually manage it in a scientific manner. These are already operational in the Free State province, entire province of Free State. We launched this program there. And we are also working in other provinces. In its nature, the Working for Water program is a green program because it helps us to actually restore our water. All these alien and invasive species that we dig out there. We also, by the way, make furniture, very good furniture. You can come, honorable members, and buy furniture from those factories of ours. Good furniture, including the chess tables, everything else that you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Hlengwa of the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, I had hoped that you would have given us the timeframes as well in terms of these jobs that you speak about, because to say sustainable would be a very broad and open-ended sort of analysis in terms of what these jobs entail. Because we do know that these EPWP programs are very short-term, and they may last a week, they may last 2 weeks, and are hardly going to be able to make a meaningful impact in the issue of job creation and the high levels of unemployment. So if you could please, Honourable Minister, take us through the average timeframes with which these jobs that you speak about are about. And secondly, when you speak about skills transfer, in light of the short-termness of these timeframes that are there, are you satisfied that the skills transfer with which you are talking about is actually effective and is going to enable the people that have been transferred the so-called skills we speak about with an opportunity in order for them to be able to progress? And lastly, the linkages that you have with local government in ensuring that these jobs actually do make a meaningful contribution. Thank you.
Let me start with the first issue, the sustainability. I did say that some of the programs, the projects that we're talking about, are long-term, working on fire. There's always a need for a standby team to put down our fires. Those of us who may not know, these bombers that you see being yellow, flying all over us, putting down your fires, the aeroplanes, the helicopters and so on, that are written in red, fire. They are from this group. This team is always there, so there is no moment where they are not there. On that program, it's a long-term one. There are, however, short program ones. If you listen, you'll be a little intelligent. There are, however, short-term programs that are like when you work on a wetland, and this is training where it happens, to reverse a dry wetland from being dry up to a point where there's water flowing and oozing out of the ground does take a science. And therefore, these are what our people are being trained. A project like that one, it would take a time of about, let me say, about up to 8-9 months, up to a year. There are programs that are up to 3 years. There are those that are up to a year, up to 2 years. And I did say we're the first to acknowledge that these are interventions, programs that are intended to get people doing something while the program that Minister was talking about, from Finance was talking about, actually realize. We do manufacturing, I've said. There's tool desks that the President announced in making the furniture, the school desks. That training goes into those people, and you can tell immediately when they leave, or they can actually go and open their own factory tomorrow, anytime, because they would have been trained. The school desk that President announced here in this house, that Department of Education is finishing their schools with, are from that program. Very beautiful stuff that comes out of those people. And I think we must all be proud about them and not run them down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Steenkamp.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, if you spend more money on EPWP wages than on the contractors that's used to implement the project, would EPWP not be more successful if you create real sustainable jobs?
I suppose somebody must still do the clearing of the wetlands. Who is that person? I suppose somebody must go and do the landfill management side. Who is that person? Somebody has got to work there. We are working and we are getting our people to work there. I suppose when we say when you're spending more money doing what you're doing, we must also calculate the value of what comes out of there. I see young men and women oozing out with confidence. They are trained on leadership, especially they're working on fire team. Confident because they are now no longer unemployed. They have bread to take home. They have been trained. They are continuing to tell us stories. I mean, you see them everywhere. So we do think that these are important programs. Yes, we've got to create sustainable jobs. Earlier on, Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister spoke to us about long-term programs. It's not the only program that we do. The question I was asking is about EPWP. I'm answering on EPWP. Honorable members, if you go and ask about the permanent jobs that we are creating, next sitting, when we have to answer, we will come with a list of those as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Shilembe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mine is just a follow-up to the Honorable Minister. Noting that the rhino poaching in South Africa continues, according to the statistic, only...
Allow the member to find his bearings, or he can't find them. Sorry. Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Your assistants did not produce the results.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You know, just defining sustainable employment usually means advancing beyond low-paying, entry-level and short-term employment. So my question to the Honourable Minister is, how does the Minister define what her ministry and the department considers to be sustainable employment opportunities? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. The question that was asked was sustainable employment opportunities. You don't get sustainable employment opportunities where there's sustainability as a concept, there's supposed to be permanency. So the job opportunities that we are being asked here, the question talks to EPWP as it goes on. And I did answer that the EPWP programs are short-term in their nature. Sustainable development opportunities would be those that are under EPWP, would be those that I have described. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we move to the next question, 143, asked to the Minister of Environmental Affairs by Honorable Kekana.
I don't know what you're saying, I'm answering. Thank you very much. The response to the question that follows, number 143, is as follows. The atmospheric emission license is the main tool that is used to implement emission standard compliance for significant emission sources, which includes all mega companies. And since 2005, metropolitan cities, the districts and provinces have been capacitated to undertake this function as required by Section 36 of the National Air Quality Act. Why 2006? Why 2006? Because in 2006, that's when the program, immediately after the devolution of function was done and assignment was done to municipalities. Furthermore, a dedicated unit that was previously responsible for this function in the department has been converted to a support or services unit to ensure efficiency in the atmospheric emission licensing function. This unit provides continued capacity building and assistance in the processing of atmospheric emission license applications. Moreover, this unit works with environmental compliance and enforcement units in all air quality related inspections and enforcement activities. The same applies to question B, all of those things that I've alluded to earlier on, because the same measures that we apply to private sector are those that we apply elsewhere and all over. With regards to municipal compliance, the department works with municipalities in preparation for the air quality management plans that are an integral part of their IDPs. And these plans ensure progressive attainment of air quality standards, taking into account the municipality's current air quality and developmental activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Kekana, any follow-up?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, Minister of Environment Affairs. My follow-up, the department's medium-term strategic framework outlined providing support to local government in areas such as the air quality management. With regard to monitoring and evaluating this support, have there been impact assessment done on the improvement or otherwise in the quality of air since programs of support have been introduced, and what is the evaluation of this impact assessment initiatives? I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes, indeed, we continue to do this assessment. As I indicated, we have a unit that has been set up, that has been converted. This is a unit, by the way, that used to do the work of air quality management compliance control. And since the function has been assigned and delegated to provinces and municipalities in particular where they belong, this unit remains. So it is important to keep emphasizing about work about this unit. And this unit, its intention is to continue to support municipalities, to evaluate the work that they do, to train them. It is actually a support machinery. But there is also another unit. That's the compliance, our green scorpions. Mayor from Water and Sanitation has got blue scorpions, we've got the green scorpions. Dialuma, they go all over where there's no compliance, atmospheric pollution, they really work hard in ensuring that happens. And we are very proud of the work that they are doing. They've been even to private sector. They go anywhere, wherever they are called, wherever they actually detect any deviation from the law or non-compliance. By the way, also in the same vein, supporting municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Khatebe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, I see the ANC has conveniently left Eskom, one of the biggest contributors of carbon emissions, out of the equation. Minister, in light of the air quality standard in the country, does Eskom currently comply with these set standards? If it does, when was the last such air quality check done on Eskom? And if it does not comply, what are you, Minister, doing to ensure that Eskom will comply with the set air quality standard? By when will Eskom be compliant? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. With regards to Eskom, it is important that, Honorable Member, we discuss this question in the Portfolio Committee so that we don't listen to rumors. What is the fact? The fact is this. If you listen, I always say you'll become intelligent a bit. What is applicable now is that Eskom's facilities are being monitored like every other facility that gets monitored. We have indeed found that some of the facilities, especially two of them that are in Mpumalanga province, were not compliant, just like we have found any other and many others in the private sector as well. What do we do? Naturally, in South Africa, and this is what the law says as well, there is administrative justice applied in South Africa. Eskom, this is what we said to them. Tell us, when are you becoming compliant? Give us your plans. And they did indeed give those plans. We aligned, we looked at those plans. They are now moving towards that compliance, and we are monitoring them on a continuous basis. Thank you very much.
Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, the areas of Meerwent, Clearwood, Jacobs, Lamontville, Osterville, Brighton Beach, and the Bluff are all surrounded by industry. Engine, Sapref, Bayers, Mondi. There appears to be a very high level of lung infection and cancer-related deaths in that area. Could you please advise, Honorable Minister, if a survey has been done? If not, can we have a survey so that we could address the issues concerning the community? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We have a few areas in the country where air quality is still not up to standard. By the way, remember, we have actually finalized the standard setting for the air quality in the country. The eThekwini area is one of them, or those areas. In Gauteng, the East Rand is one of those areas. Waterberg area is one of those areas, where we have our eyes on those areas, ears, and so on. And there are certain companies that we have identified, working with them through the administrative justice system that I spoke about, for them to improve their facilities so that there can be improvement of air quality. Remember, we are responsible, a department, we want sustainable development. Sustainable development has got 3 pillars: health for our people and everything else for our people, economy, and environment. So we take those 3 elements. Where there is a balance of those 3, that's what's called sustainable development. So it's not going to be just a pride from us or just easy to pride ourselves to say that we have closed down a plant, whereas there could have been jobs lost. So we're working with those companies for them to improve their facilities so that they can be compliant with sustainable development and true air quality in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Eersteisen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, Sasol has spent a lot of money on improving their profitability, but this has been at the expense of this social responsibility towards the environment and human health in general. We now hear that Sasol, one of this country's biggest polluters, is taking this government to court in a bid to challenge and have repealed our new air pollution laws. Sasol, it appears, will comply in the United States, but prefer to continue polluting Africa, and more particularly South Africa. If Sasol wins this legal challenge, it will set this country back 20 years in attempts to curb toxic emissions, and it will pave the way for other big polluting industries to follow. How will your department react if Sasol should win this case? Honourable Minister, also, what are you and your department doing to further protect South Africa from such ruthless profiteers who care nothing for our environment or the health and well-being of our people, and who legally challenge any law that stands in the way of their bottom line profits? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Yes, indeed, let me first of all confirm that we are in court with Sasol. We are talking, however, at the same time to try and find solution to this problem. I must also say that Sasol is one of the most important participants that actually have made an input in the air quality standards that we currently have in our laws. And they really contributed a lot. We are saying it can't be Sasol that says we don't want to be compliant, because indeed it is necessary for them to comply. We do foresee a situation where there's no way that we can lose this court battle. If it does go ahead anyway, as I say, we are continuing to talk. If it goes ahead, we don't see a way that we can actually lose this. There's so much in it, and I don't want us to talk about that case now, but just safe to say that we are going to ensure that there is compliance here in this instance. Again, that compliance will and continues to happen within the context that I alluded to earlier on, administrative justice. So Sasol, we are actually in court with them. We will cross the river when we come to it, and definitely post that fact, there should be a compliance. With regards to profiteering, I do think that everyone else can make profit in the country. What is important for us from where we stand is for any company and every company to comply with the law, environmental laws. Because if we don't, we shall be increasing the budget of health, because most of our people will be suffering from lung cancers and so on. And it is our obligation, therefore, to continue to look at that. As people make money, they must comply with our laws. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, the question time and supplementary questions and answers are now over. Outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. We now come to notices of motion. Does any member wish to give notice of a motion? Honorable member at the back there.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the Nkatha Freedom Party, I shall
hold on, sir, hold on. The man at the back there first, you will follow.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you, Deputy Speaker, I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the centrality of the constituency work in linking with the legislation arm of the state with the people. Thank you. I move.
Next, you may now speak, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that this House debate the incremental rise of informal settlement around the country. I thank you.
The gentleman behind you. Oh, he's taken off. The lady behind you, yes.
Sure, I was just worried.
Honourable
Deputy
member.
Speaker.
No, I was meaning the one next
I move
door.
on behalf of the Congress of the People that in
Yes.
its next sitting, the House debates the need for government to speed up the re-engineering of South Africa's townships so that they can become desirable and dynamic residential areas, providing necessary amenities and enhancing the quality of life and safety of those who live and work there. I so move.
Thank you. Honourable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that the House debates the safe and secure rollout of smart cards to our citizens, as well as the efficacy of the systems of checks and balances in ensuring that smart card fraud does not occur. I thank you.
Thank you. To my right, at the corner there. And then you, Honourable Waters.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates strengthening and continually transforming the legislatures to ensure they contribute towards our people's empowerment and participation. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Waters.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby give notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that the House 1 notes the audio recording of the Honourable B.M. Mobe of the African National Congress calling the leader of the opposition, Muzi Maimane, a, and I quote, bloody bastard, close quote. 2, censures the Honourable Mabe immediately for disrespectful and unparliamentary remarks. 3, requests the Speaker to refer the matter along with the audio recording to the Powers and Privileges Committee to investigate in terms of NA Rule 194. And 4, requests the committee to report on its findings by the 1st of November 2014. I so move. Thank you.
Honourable Imam.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move that at its next sitting, this House debates the failure of the state to settle a debt of 600 million rand owed to the Auditor General. I thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman behind the Imam. You say, yeah, okay.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move the motion that in the next sitting of this House, we debate the issue of the loanmen, where it is seen that they continued to pay 2 billion as dividends to its shareholders in its financial year, despite the fact that miners do not have proper housing and basic services, and many of them live in squalor informal settlement. And further to the issue of the community around loanmen that lives in squalor with no decent houses, school clinics, and unserviced chemical toilets. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next meeting of this House that the House debate the high percentage of unemployment, specifically amongst the youth, and what active steps government and the private sector should be taking to alleviate this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member. You've given up. Okay. Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party that this House debates why Parliament sees it fit to spend hundreds of thousands of rands on hosting workshops next week at expensive resorts and hotels when Parliament is available for such purposes and during difficult economic times where many of our people face grinding poverty and despair.
Thank you. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House, 1, debates the efficacy and impact of the Gauteng Advisory Panel on the socio-economic impact of e-tolls and the mass rejection of the system by Gauteng residents, and 2, calls on the Minister of Transport to make a statement on this matter as soon as possible in terms of Rule 106.1, clearly outlining her position. Thank you.
Okay. Honourable Member.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, may I rise on a point of information and order?
What's that, Honorable Member?
I think the honorable member from my party, Honorable van der Merwe, moved a motion without notice when we're dealing with notices of motion. Can that motion be considered when you're doing motions without notice and be put to the House?
Yes, you do that. I don't know how it escaped me. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move on behalf of the NFP that this House debates the impact on our economy in light of the number of foreign nationals entering the country and their failure to contribute towards any taxation. I so move.
Honorable Member there.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the central role of educators in achieving the objectives of transforming education and improving quality education. I so move.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, that in its next sitting, the House debates addressing the linkages and current trend of the trafficking of young people and women, in particular for the transportation of drugs.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the Congress of the People that at its next sitting, the House debates the need to empower and to uplift rural communities by using the Rhino Vicuna parallel. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Ke a leboga motlotlegi motlatsa Musa Khotla. Mo kokwanong bosetšhaba e latelang ntlo e tlile go ngangisana le go ganetsana ka mekgwa ya go tsenya tirisong le go tsamaisa le go ela tlhoko tlhabololo ya metshameko mo boemong jwa African National Congress ke tsitsinya jalo.
Thank you, Member. Honorable Member, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I hereby give notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at the next sitting of the House, we debate the negative impacts of the new visa regulations on the tourism industry and the benefits to be achieved with the introduction of electronic visas as an alternative to streamline tourist facilitation and improve security. Mr. Deputy Speaker, much has been said by government on this subject, but clearly not enough is being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We are done with notices of motion. Let's move to the next. We now come to motions without notice. Are there any motions? Honorable Member, you may now come of the IFP. Undecided. Any member with a...
Deputy Speaker, my apologies. My previous motion should have been I move on behalf of the IFP that the House debates. It wasn't a notice of a motion. But I've got a notice of a motion, if I can read that now.
The IFP must make up its mind. It's clearly not decided. Okay. Honorable Member.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Hold on. Honorable Member.
No, I think we have made up a mind.
What
is a point of correction. The Honorable Member indicated that the previous motion was a notice of motion. She now has a motion without notice that she wants to move to the House.
This is very close supervision, Chief Whip.
Very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party that this House notes that Springbok captain John de Villiers reached a career milestone of 100 tests played for the green and gold at the weekend. Further notes that he becomes only the 5th South African to have achieved this feat. Recognises that only a week before his teammate Brian Abana also reached this historic career milestone. Acknowledges that de Villiers took 11 years and 10 months to reach this achievement, and that during this time, his contribution to South African rugby has been immeasurable. Congratulates both Captain de Villiers and Brian Abana on reaching the milestone, and applauds them for the significant contributions they continue to make to the success of the South African rugby team. I so move, Deputy
Thank you,
Speaker.
Honourable Member.
Thank you.
Honourable Chief Whip of the...
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The DA will table at the next sitting of the House. This House condemns the National Assembly Speaker, Baleka Mbete, for addressing a crowd of ANC supporters on the precinct of Parliament on the 16th of September. 2, agrees that this action demonstrates the Speaker's contempt for the independence of Parliament as a democratic institution. 3, acknowledges that this action on part of the Speaker further politicizes her role. And 4, condemns the Speaker for making use of a state-owned police vehicle to address an ANC crowd on the precinct. I so move.
Honourable members, the previous motion, I didn't ask whether there's any objection to it. Is there any? No objections, agreed to. The motion just been read. Any objection? Objected to. Okay, that falls away. Any other member with a motion? Honourable member?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the ANC that the House knows that Banyana thumped Botswana 10-0 in a friendly match on Saturday, the 18th September at Royal Bafokeng Stadium. Further knows that the striker Portia Modise scored 5 goals in the match, taking to 97 her number of goals in 113 appearances for Banyana. Acknowledges that the coach, Vera Paul, is doing a wonderful job in preparing South Africa's women's soccer team for the African Women's Championship in Namibia next month, and congratulates the coach and Banyana on this victory and wishes them well in their next match against Ivory Coast. I thank you.
Thank you. I put the motions. Any objection? No objections, agreed to. Are there any further motions without notice? Honourable Hadebe.
Deputy Speaker, I again move without notice on behalf of the ANC that the House condemns the attacks on paramedics that took place on the 8th of September 2014 in Eguruleni while treating a wounded domestic violence suspect in Tsakane. Notes that these attacks come barely a week after another emergency personnel crew were assaulted in Davidton, also in the East Rand. Further notes that, that an ambulance and 5 police vehicles on the scene suffered extensive damage, and subsequent to that, the ambulance crew had to urgently load and ferry the patient to Pulusong Hospital without any proper treatment due to safety reasons. Believes that the attack on paramedics make it difficult for them to assist in emergency situations where they always risk their lives to save others, and calls on the members of the community to act with restraints and provide support to those who provide essential services to our communities. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Any further motions without notice? None. We move to the first to the 13th order. We will now take the first 13th orders together as they appear on the order paper. These are requests for approval by Parliament of international agreements on tax matters in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution. Are there any objections to the approval of international agreements as they appear in the order paper? No objections, agreed to. Members, that concludes the business of the day. The House is adjourned.